Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you might be in this fine world. You are listening to the Startup Selling Show, Talking Sales with Scott Sambucci. This is Serena, the show's producer, back again for another takeover, while Scott is at Sunnyvale for the Plug and Play Summit. This week, I would like to share with you one of my favorite episodes that Scott has done titled Keeping Consistent Motivation versus Discipline. I hope you enjoy it.
Hey folks, Scott Sambucci here. Thanks for listening to the Startup Selling Show. I wanted to give you a little bit of a preview of today's episode. Today's episode is a Daily Dose edition, and in this conversation with Steven Anderson, we dove into the topic of consistency and the importance of staying consistent with the work or whatever practice you're pursuing in entrepreneurship or life. And we also talked about this idea of motivation versus discipline. And this is a topic that for me personally has been something I've been thinking a lot about. People usually tell me you're a pretty motivated person because you're running this company, you're helping all these people. Sometimes you get up really early, you're doing the training for these ultra marathons and all that kind of stuff. But for me, it's not even so much that I'm motivated. I feel like one of the more powerful skills that I've learned is not how to stay motivated, but it's how to be disciplined around doing the things that I know I have to do. And I think for a lot of us as entrepreneurs, much of what we do every single day when you're running the company, it's not about being motivated every single day and every single minute. Motivation can be fleeting. It can be short. Yes, we can be motivated to solve the problem that we're out to solve with our business or to help the customers that we want to help. Those things, of course, are motivating. That's the reason we started our business. That's the reason we do what we do every day. But in between that, between the motivation and the feelings that of hype that it takes to go out and do the sales call, or to know that, wow, that was a really great sales call. Now I feel motivated to do another one. Or man, that customer got some great success from us. That's really motivating to go out and find more customers like that. Sure, those things work. But at the end of the day, I think we both know in between all of those things is a lot of really hard stuff. That's the hard stuff that requires the discipline. The motivation is great in the short run. Discipline is what gets us the results in the long run. And that's the topic that we covered today in the Daily Dose edition. So thanks so much for listening. If you are listening to the show and it's your first time, please subscribe. If you enjoy this particular episode, then this is a pretty good indication of some of the stuff that we deliver to you here on the Startup Selling Show. If you are a serial offender, if you've been listening to the show in the past, please tell a friend or 10. We're seeing, again, I've mentioned this in previous episodes, more and more episode downloads and listens and subscribers and all that stuff every single month. And it is motivating to us to see that, to sort of do a little play on words here on this episode, but it is in fact motivating for us to see the episode numbers go up and the subscriber numbers go up, and it helps us stay disciplined to pump out more content. So that's it for now. Let's head over to my conversation with Steven Anderson. Hey everyone, you are listening to the Startup Selling Show, Talking Sales with Scott Sambucci, and today is a Daily Dose edition. Steven Anderson and I are going to talk about a topic. He just pinged me on Slack and said, hey man, we got to do a Daily Dose because there's lots of really good stuff that's going on. So he shot me over a couple of topics, and the one we chose is fighting to remain consistent. Fighting to remain consistent. So this is a topic actually that I've been thinking about quite a bit over the last couple of weeks. So before I jump in, Steven, I'm curious to know why you chose this topic, because we haven't talked about it, but you were yet thinking about the same thing I was thinking about. So when you think about fighting to remain consistent, what exactly are we talking about here?
Well, we participated in a training yesterday by a guy named Dean Jackson, who's a marketing genius. If you don't know him, check him out. Really good and amazing stuff. Also apologize for the noise here. I'm in New York City and it refuses to be quiet. But what he mentioned is one of the things that's really worked well for him is consistently releasing content. And I obviously knew that this was true, and I've seen it work, and the things that I really like are always consistently coming into my inbox or are getting published. But like when you just sit back and look at what you're doing in your business or in your life, consistency is the key to making it work and making it successful. It doesn't have to be 4 hours of it a day, but if you're doing 10 minutes of it a day and you're just making it a habit, and just giving it that little extra bit, the amount that you can shift something over a week or a month or 2 months or 3 months or 90 days, whatever it is exponentially better than putting in 3 hours once every 2 weeks. And that's something that I've really seen fruit in my own life when I have remained consistent with things. Like when I block things out of my schedule and I jump in and I do them, I feel good. And it's like, all right, cool. I put that time in. And seeing that when we work with our business here of putting that time in and consistently running a campaign or consistently doing follow-ups at the same time every day or every week, you see the fruit because it's just a muscle that you flexed and you're ready to go. So hearing it on that training yesterday was just like yes, this is what I need to be doing, and this is the thing I exactly need to hear at the right time.
Yeah, dude, I love this because it's a bit of an extension of what we talked about recently, which is the process of the process. And there's so many different avenues that I've been thinking of. First, as you were just talking about, consistency, but also like a related theme that I've been considering is this idea of motivation versus discipline, which is frankly the same thing. So, thinking from a sort of creative sense or an entrepreneurial sense, I'm a big fan of Stephen Pressfield, who's written a number of books in fiction as well as a number of books about writing. He talks about the muse and how the muse is waiting for you to show up every day. And if you show up every day consistently, the muse will then give you the ideas that you need to write your books. And whether that is consistency is 30 minutes a day or 2 hours a day, or in his case, he writes 4 or 5 hours a day. It's like having the discipline, the showing up whenever, not just whenever inspiration strikes, but because it's 9 o'clock and it's time to start writing. Brian Koppelman I listened to his podcast called The Moment. Brian Koppelman he's written a lot of things. He wrote the screenplay for Rounders. Most recently, he's the writer of the show Billions, which I know a lot of people watch that show. And he talks about the same thing. It's just like showing up to write and doing the work every single day. And whether that, again, it's 30 minutes in the morning, 40 minutes at night, whatever it is, it's just the consistency thing. So from an artistic standpoint, it makes sense. Where I've been thinking a lot about this just personally, this idea of motivation versus discipline, because not just in the business side, but on the personal side, like right now, and people are probably tired of me talking about ultra running, but there's so many parallels to ultra running and trying to grow a business that I can't help but think about it. Is like, I have to do workouts every day. And it's pretty rare that I'm sitting around like, man, I can't wait to go outside and do this workout that I've scheduled for myself. Yesterday is a great example. It's all of a sudden gotten hot here where I live in Northern California. We went from winter to summer. It's now like 90 degrees. And I just haven't done any heat training. And now I'm like, okay, well, today I got to go outside and I got to run 6 or 7 miles. And it's not just 6 or 7 miles. I have to do intervals and sprints and all these other things in between. And I'm like 2 miles in this run. I'm like, this sucks. Like I knew it was going to suck before I even put my shoes on. I'm like, this is really going to suck. But so I'm never motivated. It's pretty rare that I'm motivated to go do a workout, but I know I have to if I want to go run 100 miles that I'm going to be running in 3 weeks. It's just part of the deal. So I've got more on this, but let me just pause. It's the idea of like, I know I got to do this no matter what. And the discipline supersedes any amount of motivation. Motivation is short and it's fleeting and it's important from time to time. At the end of the day, it's just like, I got to show up and do the reps.
Yeah, and there's sometimes really dirty reps, like we know. And that's a funny thing, too, where you mentioned the muse. And I actually wrote like a 30-minute stream of consciousness on this a couple of days ago, which is hilarious that we're on the same page there, too. But I think it's an important job to remember in whatever your role is, whatever business you're in, is you constantly have to seek inspiration. So, like, it's your job to stay inspired. It's to find a new piece of content. It's to go to a new park you haven't been to. It's to look at different colors or wear a different color that just makes you approach the day in a different thing. Like we talked about the other day, I changed the order of my morning routine just to see how it would feel, just to see if I approach things a little bit differently. Like it's our job to consistently look for different ways to feel and approach the same thing we do every day with a different vigor. And around you, but you can't see it if you're not giving yourself a chance to look at it in a different way and approach it every day. Because I know I have some days where I just sit down and it's just coming out of me and I can't stop it, and it's just beautiful and I'm super happy with the results. Then other days, like most of you or most of us, I'm struggling with it. But I know the more that I give the muse a chance to meet is the better I'm going to do. And the more you do it is the easier it comes to you. So consistency is really hard. It sucks some days. And we're fighting with it over here just as much as some of you might be. And what we want to do here today, I hope, is remind you that you're not the only person that struggles with it if you're struggling with it. And we want to talk about it because it's in business and entrepreneurship and life. Being consistent. It's your job to do it. It's your job to stay inspired, and share this with somebody who needs to be reminded that consistency is just a small step away and there's other people who are working on it.
Yeah, a couple more examples of that come to mind. Like just this morning, right? One of the things I do, I'm a pretty early riser most days. And last night I was up pretty late, for me anyway. I was up till about 10:30. I was getting some stuff done. We're onboarding a couple of new team members here. And there's just a lot of work that has to happen in terms of training and making sure that they're understanding things, as well as just day-to-day stuff. It's just super busy time of year for us. We have a big client event coming up next week. So there's just like an overload. And so it just means I got to work late. But in the morning, like I still get up early. And so, I went to bed just around 11. I finally started winding down around 10:30, finally got to sleep around 11, and 4:30, even without an alarm, like I'm up. Like that's just my calendar. And so I'm laying there. I'm like, okay, so I'm not motivated to get up, but I know like the discipline side is like, I have to get up. So if I like in my mind, I just know if I just like sit up and get my feet on the floor, that's all it takes to get started. Because I know that myself, even though I'm tired, I only got 5 hours of sleep, the discipline of, okay, getting up, doing my routine of coffee and pages and meditation, and then getting over to Phil's Coffee at 6:00 in the morning, all of that stuff, once I get rolling, I'll be so glad that I did that because the productivity is going to be there. So yeah, I'm not motivated to get up. People ask like, wow, like how do you get up at 4:30 in the morning? Well, I get up at 4:30 in the morning because I just tell myself I have to. So it's not because I want to. I want to sleep. The bed is warm, feels good. But the discipline of it, I know by following that path, then I'm going to get a lot more stuff done because I am a morning person. So that was one thing. And then secondly, so now I'm doing my work. I'm in Phil's Coffee. And then again, this is where the discipline versus motivation comes in, because you referred to the training that we did yesterday with Dean Jackson. And one of the things he talked about was this process he has for content production. And we're actually we have 75% of what he was talking about already done when it comes to doing these podcasts and resharing the content. And I just knew, I'm like, wow, there's just a few gaps that if I just fill in these gaps in our Trello board, in our workflow, and just spend 30 minutes or 45 minutes just detailing every little step, finding our SOP, our operating manual procedures, getting those in, having links to, I did a couple of Loom recordings on Loom to say, okay, this is how you do this is how you do that. And I've added, a couple of steps that fill all of the gaps. That is not something I want to do. I don't want to sit in Phil's Coffee at 7:00 in the morning doing an operations manual for podcast production and content production, but I'm not motivated to do it. But I knew if I just spend this 45 minutes and invest it, then it's going to give us the ability to massively increase the amount of high quality content we can get out to people. So definitely not motivated, but it was the discipline of doing it. And sort of like you were talking about, the consistency of knowing I just have to do some of these things as part of running the business. And when I do these things, good things will happen.
Yeah. And then just piggybacking off of that for one more point too, with the morning routine, it's just ingrained in me to do these things in the morning. And that gets my tank, it puts the fuel in my tank, and then I'm ready to move. And I think that consistency allows for understanding how beneficial it is to just apply that to another small section of your life or your business or your process to get you to that next place. And, anybody listening, it doesn't have to be this huge, huge thing like, oh, I need to block out 2 hours of the day to do this. If you have that time, more power to you, but just about doing that small increment as consistently as you can in a way that's not going to be frictionable. Add friction. And if you can do that, you're really off to the races, and some good things can really start happening.
Yeah, the So one is just scheduling that time. So that's the other thing I do is in my calendar, I have blocks of time, including in the middle of the day, where I just like, hey, this is an hour and a half where I'm going to go do some training. So I bring my clothes to the office and I go for a run around here and I come back and I'm all sweaty and people in the office are constantly looking at me like, I work in a shared workspace. They're like, man, this guy is dripping with sweat. This is really weird. But they've come to accept that. That's just the way things are for me. But like blocking out that time is the only way I know I'm going to get that stuff done. And I never feel like, I very infrequently feel like I want to go for a run. Sometimes I feel like I need to, and I know that I need to, because it's like, okay, I've been up since 4:30 and now I've been working. It's 2 p.m. Probably a pretty good time for a break. And I'm going to be glad that I did. But that whole process of getting started and stepping outside and doing the stretching and the breathing and all the stuff that goes into it, it sucks, man. But at the end, when I'm done, it's that I've done it. And there's a guy named David Goggins that some more people have come to know. He just published a book called Can't Hurt Me. And he talked about this idea of the cookie jar. And in a couple of podcast interviews recently, and the cookie jar has been really powerful for me the last couple of weeks, especially when it comes to like doing some of this training, because the idea of the cookie jar is like when you have like this cookie jar of accomplishments, things that you've done that you can go anytime you need a little push or you need a little motivation. You can say like, I've done this in the past. And it can be big things, but for me, it's actually been little things, because when I'm trying to get myself up to go training, like whether it's, I did a 50K last weekend, which is for me at this point has now become a training run.
Insane.
And but it's just, this is what I do. And I'm sitting there before the race. It's 6:30 in the morning, and I took a video of myself on Facebook. I did a Facebook Live for some friends. I'm like, I do not feel like doing this. Like, I don't want to do this right now because I know it's going to be a long day. It's the longest 50K time-wise I've ever had to do because of all the terrain and stuff. I'm like, this is going to suck. But I knew once I got going, I was going to be okay. And most importantly, when I got done, I would have this cookie jar. I would have this thing for the cookie jar. And that's an example of a big thing for a cookie jar. But even like day to day, I've been doing these little cookie jar trainings for myself. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go do these hill repeats and it's going to suck, but it's a cookie jar. It's a cookie jar workout, because I can look back at that and say, I've done that. Even though I didn't feel like doing it, I did it. I'm proud that I did it. I feel good that I did it. And the discipline of doing it is what's getting me ready for this much bigger race. Start up again.
Yep.
All right, man. Any other thoughts before we wrap it up here?
I think that's finish strong, even on Fridays. Stay consistent. And tell us what you think. How do you stay consistent? What tricks do you use? Devices? What are some good articles? Like, comment, subscribe, follow it. Share this with somebody who needs to hear consistency is the key. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Steven putting on a sales hat. I love it. Absolutely. Yeah. Please do share this. I mean, if whether it's you found this useful and you can just think of one other person that maybe is struggling to get started or feeling like waiting for that motivation, knowing that the motivation is not going to be the difference between getting stuff done and not getting stuff done. It's more about the discipline. If you can think of one person that could maybe benefit from listening to this, please do share it with that one person. And if you're a serial listener to the Startup Selling Show, thank you for that. And please tell a friend or 10, because viral is still the best way for us to get the word out about these episodes. Nothing jazzes us more than seeing people listening to the episodes and sharing it and doing all those things. So I think we're good for now. I'm going to call it a day. Steven, dude, thanks for discipline and saying like, hey, we got to do a podcast show. Even though Steven posted in his list today of like in our internal stand-up on our Slack channel, our daily stand-up, he posted like 6 things. I'm like, that's kind of a big list for one day. And he said it's a double espresso Friday. So we're both like super busy with all this stuff going on. And we also know the discipline of doing this podcast. It's both fun and energizing, but it also helps people. So thanks for reaching out and getting us to do this today.
Let's do it, man.
All right, man. Have a good one. We'll talk soon. See ya.
See ya.